Hello, I'm Jeremy, and I'm here. Jeremy Rich, I'm from Printing Services. I'm here to talk to y'all about getting your files ready for print and using available tools that way. I did this once before. It's a little bit updated, so hopefully you'll learn a couple new things. Again, just a quick bit about myself. My name is Jeremy Rich. I'm a graphic designer here at the University of Alabama's Printing Services. We're over on Kirk Blythe Lane. I've been a graphic designer for about 15 plus years. I was working at Tuscaloosa News for a while, as well as, and then I started here in 2018. So quick overview of what I'm going to go over. I'm going to throw a lot of terminology at you today to kind of help you maybe understand things for when you're finding out stuff when you're getting your things to print. As well, I'm going to do a couple of quick demos with InDesign, Photoshop, and Acrobat. Tell you a couple of tips and tricks, and at the very end, I'll do a Q&A to hopefully maybe answer any questions that people have lingering. So let's get started. What does a print-ready file look like? Well, it's a PDF. We all know what PDFs are. They're your best friends. They stand for Portable Document Format. It's a file format developed by Adobe as a means to distribute compact platform-independent documents. We also have other stuff that are ready for print. You have like JPEGs and other things, but PDFs are generally our go-to file format when you want something to get ready for print. Let's see. So one thing that you may hear a lot when you're getting your file ready for print is your file needs crops and bleeds. So what are those? Well, they're crop marks. They're the thin lines that you normally see on the corners whenever you get like a proof sometimes. They designate to tell our cutters here at the Printing Services where to like crop and like cut a file. So this way it looks square. So if you have an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but it has like an image that goes to the edge, you want it to look square. So that's what the bleed is the extra part of text or object that extends past the boundary in the image area. And I'll be showing this in a little while when I go and do my InDesign demo. So here's kind of an example. Hopefully you can kind of see it. On one side, we have one without crops and bleeds, and you just see it's a little square object. As to the other side, we have with crops and bleeds, and you can see there's this little extra white space on the edge. I even made sure to make a little like pink area to kind of highlight what the image area is going to be, and it's going to have these little tick marks, and those are your crop marks, so we know where to cut it when your file is coming through. So here's one that's kind of useful, and if you've ever been in design stuff like before, you've probably heard it before. If not, hopefully this is new to you. So what's resolution? Some people will say that a lot. Well, it's how many of your image's pixels fit inside each inch of the paper. Simply put, the level of detail of how well your image looks when you're printing it. Image resolution has everything to do with your printing image and nothing to do with what it looks like on screen. And that is usually a really big one that we run into a lot. You have a lot of people saying, well, man, this looks great on my screen, but when it prints out, it looks really muddy. It may be kind of pixelated. So a rule of thumb is the higher your resolution of an image, the better. And I'll show you in a little while how in Photoshop you can actually check your resolution of your image so you know that if something is high quality or not. It's also referred to as dots per inch. So we usually shorthand it into DPI. The best quality for a really good looking image is 300 dots per inch for printing on small objects. So this would be like brochures, notepads, letterheads, business cards, anything you can think of that you're going to hold in front of you. It is more than likely 300 dots per inch. So it's usually high quality. Now, if we're blowing things up and you see like banners on campus, like maybe the softball banners or some kind of big banner hanging in front of like the communications college, that's usually probably about 150 because your pixels are so large in a larger format, it's still going to look clean. So your banners, your yard signs, billboards, wall graphics, anything. So images viewed on your computer, because your computer displays are always at 72. So just because it looks good on your computer doesn't mean it's going to look good when it's going to print. And so here's a really good example I have. So the image here of this lady on the left is 72 DPI image. And you can see how kind of muddy it looks. It looks like a square, very fuzzy, as to where the image next to her is a 300 resolution image. This is kind of simulating it because you're seeing it on a screen. And next to it's kind of a really good idea, as like a 300 DPI image is going to have a smooth circle versus the 72 looks a little jagged, and then you get a 10 DPI image, which is very, very low quality and resolutions, like icons on your desktop or something like that. Maybe that because they're so small, they still look clean. So the next part about talking about printing is color. We tend to print, in printing, you have 4 colors. You have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So it's just represented as CMYK, which you see whenever you create like a image or a color inside a color palette. And that's how printing works, because printing is additive, because we're adding stuff to it. So when you're looking at your computer, you're looking at what's called an RGB space, which stands for red, blue, and green. And those don't translate as well as printing because our machines have to transfer the RGB into a CMYK, and sometimes you get a lot of differences. So you see here where I've got like what you see on your screen might look like a really bright yellow, but when it prints, it comes out kind of like a little duller. So, and here's a really good example of differences of what you see on screen versus how things print. So I did this earlier today. I made a 4-color black that was all the inks are completely maxed out, and then here's one that's just a solid, and then here we have the normal. This isn't actually 100. That should be 24 100 73 18, and then here's one built-in RGB for our 201, the crimson that we use. Well, in the bottom we have something that's called Pantone, which is what the official UA color is. Well, on the right side of the screen is actually what I got printed out from our printers, and it's a picture I take. You can see how the CMYK.
That's one of my senior year goals. Great goals.
Sorry about
that.
Oh, you're good. You can see how they look kind of dull as to where the 201 looks a lot more vibrant. So that's something else that I'll kind of go into a little later with, like how color spaces work with 4 colors, 3 colors, or just calling a Pantone, because there's some kind of neat little tricks you can do with that. So yeah. So now that I've thrown a whole lot of terminology at you, and hopefully y'all are all still here, I can show you some demos of what things kind of look like in InDesign. So let's just start with a basic file. So if you're starting up InDesign for the first time and you want to do like a file, and you can just do like test file, you're always going to tell us what the size and the width of the image is. So a general rule, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper is kind of standard for a lot of flyers. Well, down here at the bottom, we actually have the bleed and the bleed space. And this is where you want to add your bleed whenever you're making something that wants to extend past the normal image area. So this way, like if solid color is there and you're cutting it down, it creates a nice smooth line instead of having like a white space. And the people who run the cutters have to like kind of guess where it's at, because they're not going to be able to hit 8.5 by 11 exactly. So yeah, so now we've made a document, and so we're gonna open a file. So as you can see here, you're gonna have, and I'm gonna flip this around so this way you can kind of see it. We'll do it with like a bright blue. So this space up here up top, and you can see it all the way around. There's like a little orange bar. Hopefully you can. I'll zoom in too. So there's this little orange bar here. That's the bleed area. So let's say.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yeah.
We're still stuck on your slideshow. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're still stuck on my slideshow. Okay. Sorry about that. I think I know what I need to do here. Sorry. It didn't change over correctly. There we go. We'll go back.
Apologize for not noticing.
No, you're good, man.
Perfect.
All right. So we'll start over again real quick. So when you're making your file documents here, then y'all can see my InDesign, right?
Yes, we're good to go now.
Awesome. I'll remember to change that over when I swap over to Photoshop real quick. So yeah, here we go. We have test file, and then you have your document size here. And then as you scroll down, you'll have your margins, which can be pretty helpful. You don't want things to be like right up on the edge of a document like text. You obviously don't want a paragraph sitting on the edge of a piece of paper when we try and cut it down, because then we have to kind of gauge where it needs to go. And then here is your bleed area. A good rule of thumb is always to have 1.25. So this creates your documents like an extra 1/4 inch larger. So like if it was an 8.5 by 11, it's going to be 8.75 by 11.25 in reality. So when it cuts down, this way we have room. So here we go. All right. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'll show you. So you have this little red line here, and let's set up the thing. You have the red line here, and you can see it kind of fits in this little space. So this would be bleed. This is the bleed area. So if we zoomed out and we wanted to make a file like about this size, this black line right here is where the edge of the image actually is. But when it prints, it's going to print that little extra space. This way, when it comes out of our printers, we can cut it down and make it look a lot like more to the size that it needs to be. So if it was an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So say you finally built your file, and let's see, and it's ready to go. Okay, well now we need to export this so we can create a PDF for you to print from. So we'll go to File, and we'll go to Export, and it'll tell you like, hey, where do I want to put this file? So here's where a lot of things kind of, when we get files and stuff like that, can kind of be a little murky because there's a lot that they're throwing at you here. So you only need to go to the Marks and Bleeds tab of the
Hey,
export.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
We can only see your main InDesign.
Let's try
You'll,
this.
you'll have to share your whole screen for us to see multiple different windows.
Okay, let's try that. Sorry, this thing got wonky on me. All right, that better?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. Sorry about that. Okay. So anyway, so we got this, and we've got your window here. So you need to go to the Marks and Bleeds tab. And this is the only thing you need to know when you're exporting your files. You need to make sure you click Crops and use Document Bleed Setting. So this will actually make it so that your document will export as a PDF with its crops and bleeds. As for your PDF settings, press quality is always good. Some of this stuff doesn't really matter as much, but press quality is always going to make sure that your PDF looks really good and it's going to be as the highest quality possible. All right. So now if we hit export, we should, and let me find it. I'll pull this file up. And so then here you go. So now here's your ready to print file. And then you can see in the corner, it's got the crop marks. And you can even, a little neat trick in Acrobat is you can always mouse over into the bottom corner and it'll actually tell you here, like, what size is this? This is like 9.08 by 11.58. This adds a little bit of extra room, but the reality of it is it's a lot bigger than an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So it's going to cut down to that when it comes out of our printer. Okay, so let's, I was talking earlier about like building your colors. So let's say we wanted to make the university's crimson. So the actual color breakdowns on it are this. So that's how it would break down in terms of actually like the ink. And if you ever need to make new colors, this is always, you would hear new color swatch, and it will bring up your CMYK values. And a great rule of thumb is you can always look that stuff up online if you're ever curious about a color. You can just ask like CMY breakdown of this color, and that's a good way to like find it. But as a university, we have designated Pantone colors. And Pantone's created their own little software, but with printers, all we need to know is what the Pantone name is. So if you go in here and you select Spot, and you actually just name this Pantone 201, when this prints now, the printers will always know to replace whatever color you put there with the Pantone 201. You can even have a solid box of like black, and it will print correctly because of how printing software looks for a Pantone color and replaces it with the actual ink. So, okay, so I mentioned earlier about showing you how to check for image quality sizes. So let me pull up Photoshop real quick, and I will show you. We'll use this stock photo I have of the Grand Canyon here as it pulls up. So if you ever are curious about a photo that you pulled off, that you got from an image site, or maybe you pulled something off Google Image Search and you're curious, well, okay, well, what's the quality of my photo? You can actually go into Photoshop and go up to image size. And in this box here, it'll tell you the actual size of the image. And right here, it says it's resolution, which is what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned DPI or resolution. So this is actually 300 DPI. So that is a high quality image that can be printed. Sometimes you have larger ones. And a good rule of thumb to know about when you're printing images like this is you can always remove pixels, but you can never add to it. So if I have a 600 resolution image and I need to resize something, I have about 300 resolution that I can kind of play with to make things smaller, and maybe I need to fit somewhere else. But you can't make a 300 a 600. Hopefully that makes sense. So, okay, so here's something else, and we'll use one of these images that I did earlier today that I did for a customer. Okay, so say somebody sends you a file. This will actually open up. Oh, no, it's not going to right now. We'll just use the we'll use the Grand Canyon photo again. So say someone sends you an image and it is, or you have an image, but you don't maybe have access to InDesign in the moment, but you can kind of resize things. Well, a really good way to make sure your file is correct, and this is a neat little trick that we learned, is you can actually go to canvas size, and you can do plus 0.25 here. And what this will do is add that extra bleed space that would normally be printed. And you can actually, and then from there you can select the image, and you could do like what's an inverse, and can go down to this thing called content aware fill. And what content aware fill does is it will look at the entire image, and it'll actually fill in the space so that it like makes it more of a whole image. And I'll zoom in because I know this is like a lot, very like this is pretty large. So it's thinking about it. So we can go up here. It's going to take a minute because it's got to think about it. And you'll actually see that little space right there. And it's going to, currently it's working on preview, and I can click OK. And Photoshop will actually fill in this blank space based on the image area around it, which is kind of helpful. So if you can't get, if you're using some other, like maybe you're using Word, or you have a PowerPoint you want to like translate, but you need to add crops or bleeds to it without having to use InDesign, you can actually use Photoshop to create that bleed space and send it over, and our printers can actually place it so that the crops and bleeds are added to it with the marks anyway, which can be kind of helpful. This thing is taking a minute. It is a very large file. So it's definitely going to think about it. So, but this is a really useful way to expand like the size of an image. So, or like if you have a picture that may not quite fit that 8.5 by 11 space, but you just need that little extra space. So, oh, there it goes. And you can see where it filled it in. All right, I'll do the last few slides. And then we'll, so a quick go over with programs. As I mentioned earlier, the most useful file format to create is PDF. We use InDesign, Photoshop, or other third-party programs can also generate PDFs. If you're not sure how to make a PDF sometimes, you can always Google it. I'm sure there's tons of tutorials through Adobe, as well as like YouTube channels. So some quick tips and tricks from me. When in doubt, Google it. Like that's usually a great way to, if you have a question. You can also use stock photo sites like Shutterstock, iStock, Getty Images, or I believe as Barrett mentioned in his last little thing, you can use Adobe stock photos. If you absolutely need to pull an image from Google Image Search, make sure you have your settings set to highest quality. This way, when you pull the photo out, it's going to be low quality, but this way now you know you can pull it into Photoshop and check it. When in doubt, print it out. Print out your document in an office or a home printer to take a look at it, make sure it looks right, make sure that the quality looks good. And if you're unsure about something, you can always ask. Here at Printing Services, we're here to help folks, and we do printed proofs all the time for people so that they know what it's going to look like. And you have a better idea of like, oh, well, maybe this came out a little too dark, or maybe this came out a little too light. We can kind of modify that and help you get something that looks great. So yeah, I guess I'll open it up for a couple of questions. Well, I'll do this real quick and then I'll open for questions, but you can find us at the University of Printing. We're at 325 Kirkbride Lane. We're over on the far side of campus, close to the river. This is our front office number is 205-348-5200. We provide services for all of the University of Alabama as well as Tuscaloosa. We do business cards, letterheads, envelopes, large format printing, and much more. And you can go to our website at printing.ua.edu. And as for me, I'm Jeremy. My email is rich001, and my number is on the screen. If you need it, I'm always available to help as well, even if it's just going and helping somebody out. So yeah, does anybody have any questions? I know I threw a lot out there, and we had some technical problems, so hopefully that didn't deter y'all too much.